Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave Podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Facebook.com/We Are Rogue Matter and YouTube.com/Rogue Matter, Twitch.tv/We Are Rogue Matter. Do the whole like, click, subscribe, share, make us, or don't even make me famous, make Hassan incredibly famous. I am your host, Michael Dolce, and as I just mentioned, my co-host, my cohort in crime, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
Everything's different.
So it's good. We've upgraded. See, this is what it's all about here. We are upgrading and doing stuff that
This is progress, right?
This is progress. Yes,
this is progress. All right.
Not only are we upgrading, but in a few weeks, we're going to be totally overhauling the show. It's going to be outstanding. We're going to really make a delineation between what's going on at Rogue Matter and then what our feelings are about pop culture at large. So it's going to be pretty exciting. And this weekend, if you go to Fan Expo Philly, you can actually meet us in person. We will be broadcasting from Fan Expo. I want to say live. Because I haven't decided yet or not whether we're going to stream it out or we're going to keep it the way it is and record it and run it during the week. But we will be there. So please check us out. It's at the Philadelphia Convention Center. Big shout out to Fan Expo, which was formerly Wizard World. At least that show was. So we're going to give props to our former employees, all the way back then. So you can check out. See, look at all the cool stuff we have on screen. We have our brand new producer, Erin, to thank for that. She is backstage doing all this wonderful stuff. See, look at this. We got producers. We got new graphics. We're gonna actually have even more new graphics too. I'm busting at the seams, Hassan. I'm busting. Can you see me? I mean, you literally can see me, but I mean, can you feel me?
Is that you busting at you? Yeah. Yeah, I got.
And Aaron says, see, look at that.
Oh. That's you busting at the seams.
Do you know what's really funny though is that she can write messages as it's happening, like as we're doing this video, and she could just be like, Hassan doesn't know what he's talking about. What is going on?
Do that. She could definitely do that.
I mean, she could lose her job that way too, but at the very least, it would be a worthwhile way to go out. I'm going to say.
Great. All right.
All right. We've got a lot to talk about. Out of the two of us, one of us saw Morbius, so we're going to go dive into that next segment.
Though. I mean, I don't understand why you did that.
Because this is a glorious day for me. You realize?
What, going to see Morbius was glorious.
It's not so much like going to see Morbius was glorious. It's the fact that you did not see it and I saw it.
Couldn't do it, dude.
I find to be the best.
We'll talk about it, but it looked like it felt.
Well, I will.
I can say about it.
We will go in depth about that a little later. But first, we are going to start tonight's show with a little bit of Moon Knight. It is right now Marvel's the MCU's most popular streaming show. So apparently, Moon Knight out the premiere. What's that?
It's beating out Loki and
Hawkeye actually too, which I forgot to mention. The Moon Knight premiere viewership tops WandaVision and Hawkeye on Disney Plus. So it is apparently either people are. It still trailed Loki. Okay, so we do have to correct that. My fault. It surpassed WandaVision and Hawkeye, but trailed Loki. Loki obviously having Hiddleston as the star, maybe was a slight more draw than Oscar Isaac. Plus, having been in the films, there's a little more brand recognition.
Plus
but
people knowing who Loki is, as opposed to not as many people knowing who Moon Knight.
But that's what makes the fact that they beat out WandaVision and Hawkeye. I mean, Hawkeye, right? Maybe because it looks more like just a more traditional superhero type show. It's got a little intrigue, a little mystery. It's got Ethan Hawke in it. I mean, I don't know. There's something a little more grown up about this show, which is what I kind of feel about after watching the first two episodes. I feel like it's a little more, I don't know, a little more grown up than what Hawkeye was.
I hesitate to subscribe to that, but sure.
What?
Not going to argue with you about it, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's. I mean, we've only seen like 2 episodes. There's, there is a little bit of gore in it. There's some, death and destruction, and blah blah blah, which is kind of great. But I don't know. I don't know if it's more adult, and it's
no.
not
I didn't say adult. I didn't say adult. I just said more grown up. Like I feel like it's a little more of I don't know. It's got it. I know what you're saying. I know we're kind of parsing words here with between adult and grown up, but watching like Hawkeye, I recall thinking to myself, it seems to be skewed toward a younger audience, whereas Moon Knight seems to me, at least from the first 2 episodes, seems to skew toward a more grown up audience, a more adult audience. Is that a fair statement?
You just said adult audience.
I know. No, I know. We're parsing words here, so I agree with you. Yeah.
Never mind. I don't know. I haven't seen enough yet, but maybe so.
That was my initial reaction. Like that was my initial impression of the first 2 episodes. I felt like the first 2 episodes seems to me like it was more of a, again, an adult skewing show, a little bit more. It takes itself more seriously. I guess that's even the best way to put it, right? That's why I guess what I mean by grown up. It takes itself more seriously. Hawkeye to me never took itself very seriously. Now, WandaVision took itself very seriously. However, it was 2 obscure Avengers characters.
As opposed to Moon Knight?
As opposed to Moon Knight, who's a totally obscure character altogether. I mean, he's not even in the Avengers. That's what I'm saying. That to see Moon Knight top both of those in the ratings, to me, that's I'm trying to figure. I'm actually trying to parse out like what's the draw? Like what is it? Does the MC? Is it just the MCU at this point? Were the trailers enough to entice people to watch that more? Or just they're more subscribers now? I mean,
there's a billion metrics. Yeah, there's more subscribers than there were. There has to be more subscribers than there were before WandaVision. Yeah. Right? There hasn't been a Disney Plus show since Book of Boba Fett, which was a couple of months ago, which ended like a month and a half ago or something like that. There's nothing else going on. There's no Peacemaker. There's no, there's no competing material to draw people's attention away. People are, Oscar Isaacs is a liked actor. He's very. I mean, it sounds denigrating to say, but he's very non-offensive. Really good actor. He's pulling. He seems seemingly pulling off the personable aspect of the character off.
Absolutely.
So, I mean that there's a lot to say about it. I don't know. I don't know about more adult and not adult because people are getting shot and killed in Hawkeye. Yeah.
Yes. Well, but in a comical way, right? It was almost.
All right. No, I don't agree. Whether it's
getting shrunk and then an owl takes him up. I mean, that's very cartoonish. This seems to be a little bit more, mercenaries and of that ilk. I feel like is I don't know. I feel like there's something to that. I feel like there's some element to it. If I was to give you the streaming numbers, and you probably can already dissect this because I think we talked about this enough. If I was to give you the streaming numbers of the previous MCU series, 5-day premiere viewership, what would you rank the 5 in a row? Where do you think they would fall?
I don't repeat the question. Where would the numbers be of the
just rank what you think, what you just off the top of your head. It's not it's not a test you can really fail. It's just a guess. The 5 shows: Loki, Moon Knight, Falcon, Winter Soldier, WandaVision, Hawkeye. In terms of total premiere viewership, so 5-day premiere viewership, just rank them as to what you think got the most and got the least.
Well, we already said that Moon Knight beat out the other 2. So
WandaVision and Hawkeye.
You have to put Loki first.
Yep.
And then Moon Knight.
Yep.
And I would say probably Hawkeye,
Okay.
and then that would leave WandaVision and Winter Soldier.
In that order, you think Winter Soldier was the least? So here's it's a fun exercise. Moon Knight and Winter Soldier actually tied. So they're tied for second at 1.8 million U.S. households. Loki was the number one, 2.5 U.S. households. WandaVision actually did 1.6, and Hawkeye did 1.5. That's fascinating to me. Like like I don't know. Like there's something about that just fascinates me because Hawkeye is a seemingly badass character. He's a renowned
but I mean,
Avenger.
He's niche though, like if you put a Captain America in one of those shows, he's gonna outdo almost all of this stuff. Like Loki is the highest profile character that they gave a show to,
and his numbers reflect it. So it's an easy one, right?
Yeah, he's been in like 4 or 5 of the movies.
Yeah,
so I mean, I would say that kind of tracks. I'm surprised Winter Soldier is as high as Moon Knight.
I'm not though, and I think the reason it works for the first episode too. I mean, this is the premiere episode.
Premiere episodes, right? So we're not talking about like percentage fall off.
Correct. Yeah. Which I'll be very curious to know what the totals will be at the end of it. I wonder because I know WandaVision, I think took off. It became like a water cooler show.
Yeah, because there was a lot of doubt about it when it first started.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of started to become like the really immersive, intertwining kind of narrative that people seem very invested in, and until the end. And they kind of ruined the end for themselves. The show's ending was fine.
Yeah.
But by wanting, I mean, it's the phenomenon of wanting more than you actually get. And since you didn't get the more that you wanted, what you did get wasn't enough. It's kind of a weird thing.
Yeah.
It's like if I go to a movie and they say, Vin Diesel's in it as Wolverine, and even though there was no logical sense for that to happen, when Vin Diesel was not in the movie as Wolverine, it would like, you know what? The movie would have been better if Vin Diesel was in it as Wolverine.
Right.
So,
right.
We do that to ourselves. But I think WandaVision, I'm pretty sure it has its own place now in reverence and respect.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with the Multiverse of Madness, whether they undo some of the goodwill that they got with Wanda, because it's very delicate.
Yeah.
The character needs to be handled. The character's fate needs to be handled very delicately. So we'll see. Right now,
I agree with that. I think just getting to my point real quick, and then we'll dive into Moon Knight. At least one, because at this point everyone's seen one. It doesn't surprise me that Falcon Winter Soldier did as well, because again, I think on the surface, and I mean, again, I have my qualms with the actual execution of that show, but the premise of it, I think, again, skews more toward grown up. Whereas even in the trailers, Hawkeye actually, no, I disagree. The trailers, which again, Hawkeye to me is just an anomaly. I don't know why it didn't do as good.
It did well. It just didn't do better than the others.
Well, I agree, but that's my point. I'm curious as to why it didn't do as good. I'm curious as to.
Hawkeye,
I wonder if it had a fallout from Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's why, again, we'll have to get the data, and our bosses upstairs love data. So if we can do that, I'd love to know the data. Maybe Hawkeye suffered from Falcon and Winter Soldier. Maybe people lost faith in these streaming series, or enough people lost faith to where a 0.3 drop off occurred in terms of this. And then maybe Hawkeye by the end restored the faith to say, hey, you know what? We're back on board. Let's give Moon Knight.
Doesn't make any sense because Falcon and Winter Soldier was first, and then
no, WandaVision. It was
Falcon and Winter Soldier was before Loki, and then
you're right.
before Hawkeye. So if there's going to be boil off from
Interesting.
Falcon and Winter Soldier, it would have affected Hawkeye. I mean, it would have affected Loki, not Hawkeye.
You're right.
But
so then maybe Loki turned them off. I don't know. All right.
I think the weekly streaming, it's in its infancy. understand exactly why they have to do it.
Yeah.
Not going to advocate for anything other than that, but I think it's just they're still shuffling around and figuring out the format, and some of the show's going to suffer a little bit. But I think the Hawkeye did really well. It just didn't do as good
Yeah.
as the second lowest. But I mean, look, I would say personally,
Yeah.
WandaVision's probably the best show they've done,
Yeah, I agree with that.
and that is no higher. That's only a little bit higher than Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Now, like we said, a number of metrics apply to it because that was almost a year ago already. So who knows? But I mean, look, the quality of show still beats whatever they're putting on now, and that includes Moon Knight, in my opinion.
Yeah. Our producer Aaron just chimed in backstage. I thought it was because it was Christmas themed. I think a lot of people are confused. It's possible too.
Maybe I don't know. People got killed. I was all right with it because people were killed.
Last week we talked about Moon Knight, but we glossed over it because look, this is why I don't like these series debuting on a Wednesday. Only because we're not racing to get it. Like, we're not here to like get.
We don't want to compete with the weekend market, though. You got Netflix, you got Netflix and Amazon and a number of other streaming shows dropping their shows.
I think it also, what it does is it gives, depending on the schedule, it gives a clear delineation of which is going to arrive first, so that if you are going to go see Doctor Strange, for example, and some big clue, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but some big clue happens in Moon Knight, you now know that you need to watch Wednesday's Moon Knight before you go see the theater, and it gives you time to do that.
That too. I mean, yeah, but I think it's a double-edged sword. But I think owning Wednesdays kind of,
it's a nod. It's got to be a nod to the comic book, new comic book day also.
It might be that. It could be that calculated, or it could just be that was the day that was open and they're going to own it. I don't know. Who knows? But I mean, look, I get it. Because in the weekend, first of all, the weekend also, you're going out, you're going to do things. You might be wrapped up with whatever is going on during the week, and I don't know. You might not get to it until Monday. They don't want to wait that long.
Yeah, it's possible. All right. So last week we talked about Moon Knight episode 1, and I mentioned there's just one part that I disliked immensely, that took me out for a second and turned me off to it. It's the scene after they're in the village. He wakes up in that village. It's when he first meets Ethan Hawke's character, or shortly before he meets Ethan Hawke's character, but he's being chased by the mercenaries. Cool action scenes, by the way. I love the fact that he wakes up, and he's kind of like, he just kind of closes his eyes, but then he kind of wakes up and then stuff's already kind of happened. Like, that's a really, really cool, way to do it. Right. But at one point, the costume, all of a sudden starts talking to him, and it looks like, not just looks like, it sounds exactly like Venom. I mean, almost to the point where it's like, oh, the imbecile's back in charge. And now, obviously, because of episode 2, we kind of learn that it's not necessarily, what do you call that? That's, it's not the costume. It's the, what do you call, I don't even know his name. The god itself, that's the one talking.
Yeah, whatever the Moon Knight is, whatever the heck the actual Moon Knight is.
Yeah.
And then, what the sad thing is, I don't know the comic book really well, so I don't actually know the story of Moon Knight, and I did not take the initiative to look it up before the show, because I figured, okay, the show's going to come on, so I'm going to be able to like experience it like all the other noobs, and and see whether or not it works for me.
Right.
So I actually have no clue what's happening.
Yeah, I have no clue what's happening.
I will say one thing.
Yeah.
I don't really like the Moon Knight costume.
No, I don't. I agree with you. I don't think it's great.
I'm not. It's not very impressive looking.
No.
I mean, it looks like a guy in robes and it's all white, and and he's got white eyes. It's like there's nothing very capturing or interesting looking about it. Now, it is.
Do you know what the funny thing is? I think his costume
very comic book accurate, actor, yeah, costume accurate,
right?
But it's not doing much for me in the awesome factor,
right?
You know, like they can do so much stuff, and thankfully, I know I'm not going to get on this soapbox, I promise. Thankfully, the Batman actually captures it. They can do so much with Batman, the imagery of Batman. This doesn't seem like there's a lot. I'm sure I'll be proven wrong as the shows go on, but there doesn't seem like there's a lot to do with it. I mean, there's not a lot they can do to make that look. It looks interesting, but it doesn't look. And I hate to say this because it makes me sound like a child. It doesn't look awesome.
Right.
It's kind of awesome adjacent, but it's not awesome. And
well,
I think
the comic book has the luxury of you can add inks to it. Right, so the black can kind of come through.
Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of digital dynamic stuff they can do with it. I bet you Moon Knight fans are head over heels about the look, at least the look of the character, if not the show in and of itself. I don't disparage them. I'm not saying that you guys are wrong or whatever. I'm just saying every time I see that suit, I'm like, all right, well. And now, as you say, the fact that it's kind of trailing Venom in style of narrative style, as in the main protagonist is very much in the dark. Everybody else knows more. He loses time on a regular basis, and he has voices in his head that hate him. You know, that apparently are not very kind to him, which is very much the Venom format.
Right.
So, look, we are in good hands. We have Oscar Isaac doing it. And Oscar Isaac is every bit the actor that Tom Hardy is. So he can pull it off. But without an awesome looking, like without me sitting, like just turn into Moon Knight so I can see something awesome. Without me doing that every week. And while they slowly, because they're going to stretch it out over the 8 to 6 episodes of how many the season is, without knowing exactly what's going on, I think it's starting to feel like a little bit of a slog. Now, I know that is my need for immediate gratification. I've said that about a number of these shows. I've gone back and watched the shows after, and knowing everything about the shows, and knowing the twists and turns and the narrative behind it, I've been able to enjoy the shows actually even a little more when I've in second and third viewings. So everything I say now, grain of salt, it's just a adolescent temper tantrum. But I don't find the Moon Knight visual very compelling.
Yeah.
And I am I'm lazy, and I'm like waiting for this narrative to kick off so I can understand what's going on. And it's like it's 2 episodes already. How come I'm not 100% an expert in the Moon Knight lore and paraphernalia and all that other stuff? So I don't know. But you know what? That's actually not my criticism or my review of the show, because I'm actually liking the show. As
I'm enjoying it. Like I said, I'm totally enjoying it. It was that one. We mentioned it last week. I just wanted to make sure that we actually, put it out there as well too, because we obviously again we're trying to be spoiler free for the current episode, which just aired today. But we can be as spoilerific as we want to for the previous episode, because at this point you've had a week and there's another episode there.
Spoilerific. Yeah, we had to tone it down for Darren last week, because
that's true.
Darren came to the show without doing his homework.
I know.
So I know. That was Darren's fault. But yeah, anyway, I'm enjoying it so far. It's good. So it's compelling. It's good. It's well done. It's Marvel. It's at Marvel's quality.
Ethan Hawke too. It seems to be a very formidable adversary, and without getting into too much detail, because you do get to learn more in episode 2 about him and his place within the mythos of everything that Stephen Grant / Mark Spector is going through. Right. He seems to really have taken to being this villain. I don't necessarily picture Ethan Hawke as a villain. I think my favorite Ethan Hawke thing is what, Gattaca. Gattaca is my favorite Ethan Hawke
Really?
vehicle. I love that
Okay.
movie. There's something about that movie that, I, where I'll always remember too. It's like when he's talking to his brother and how his brother always beats him, or how he always beats his brother in the swimming races and stuff. And it's because he's like, I don't save anything for the trip back. I find that very inspiring. If you remember the movie at all, do you remember
Yeah, I
Gattaca?
remember.
Yeah. So there's something about that line and that movie, that film. I like. That's my favorite Ethan Hawke vehicle.
Mine is Training Day.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That's an incredible movie. That movie did really well. Was critically acclaimed, and I still think that movie is underrated because it kind of faded back into the scenery as quick as it came out. And Ethan Hawke's performance in the film is impeccable. It's really well done. So
all right, yeah,
he had a lot of weight to carry in that movie because Denzel Washington could just choose scenery.
Well, he's a force. I mean, he's a force.
And all he had to do was really just be. He went against his type because Denzel's a squeaky clean guy, and he was the villain in the piece. So all he had to really do is be charismatic and as vile as humanly possible, and choose scenery. And Ethan Hawke actually had to carry the weight of being the hero, the wholesome guy, the uninteresting guy, right? And I think he did a really good.
But in this case, job. I guess now in Moon Knight, he gets to be kind of that interesting guy, right?
Which, he does have, with the exception of, with the exception of Valerian, but I don't know what he was doing in that movie. He kind of has a very calm menace to him in Moon Knight, and I think that really works because there's a lot of outlandish and bombastic stuff going on, and he is behind a lot of the bad stuff, but he's got a very tempered and controlled aura to him, which I think helps him come across even more so menacing than just being the mustache twirling bad guy.
Right. No, I agree with you 100%. I think like I said, I think he's definitely.
I'm a fan of the Hawks. I like Ethan Hawke and Maya Hawke from Stranger Things, and and Mrs. X Hawke, Uma Thurman. So it's I'm a fan of the whole family. I'm good with the Hawks.
Yeah, I'm with you as well. All right, what do you guys think? Did you like Moon Knight 1 and 2? Are you as surprised that it is doing as well or did as well? Being it's a no name Marvel character. Give us your thoughts. Put stuff into the feed. We will obviously comment on it and respond to you as we are going along. Coming up next, we're going to dive into the other Marvel content that was released, or quasi-Marvel content that was released this past
Marvel adjacent.
I'm going to tell you whether or not it's worth seeing. We are going to react to Morbius when we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. Just wanted to give you guys a heads up that Rogue Matter is the parent company of Rogue Wave podcast, and we've got awesome stuff for free on the website. However, we are also part of the fan and creator community. We've backed a ton of Kickstarters, and we launched a couple Kickstarters as well. So coming April 12th, go check out Time Trader number 4. It's the final chapter. Dylan Sharp can rewind time whenever he wants to. He goes to the stock market to try to cash in on his power, discovers it's run by an Illuminati of time traders just like him. And after the thrilling events of issue 3, which we happily just shipped out to all of our backers, Dylan has to face off against this Illuminati. Will he succeed? Will he ultimately rely on the one person he never expected to help him along the way? Time Trader number 4, the final chapter in the 4-part Kickstarter. The four-part series is now live on Kickstarter April 12th. You can click to follow. So go over to that link, roguematter.com/Kickstarter, and it will take you to the Time Trader page. Click to follow. You'll be notified for when it is going to be released. All right. We got a double dose of Marvel content this week. The long-delayed Morbius movie just finally debuted.
If you want to call it Marvel, you can. If you want,
it's Marvel adjacent. It's the Sony. It's the Sony Marvel universe.
Sony hack and slash, pilot fish.
Yes.
Parasitic hold on all things Spider-Man, and their attempt to ride the coattails of the MCU all the way to financial stardom and fame.
So a little behind the curtain for you guys. I texted Hassan over the weekend. I said, "Hey, by the way, I forgot Morbius comes out," and I legitimately forgot. It had been delayed so often I didn't even realize. And now I didn't even really see any commercials for it. I think at this point they were just hoping to just get it out, and then
I've seen commercials for it. I've seen it advertised quite a bit on regular television. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I didn't. I haven't, and
I couldn't tell you as to whether it's enough. It's being advertised enough, or is the marketing enough for it? But I have seen it. I can tell you I've seen it on a regular basis.
Well, apparently, not only did I forget it was coming out, but apparently it got horrible reviews, and that was what you texted to me. You're like, "I'm not seeing this." It's a 16% on Rotten. It was right, 16% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, it was 60 when I texted you. It's changed a little since then. But
what is it now? Do we know?
I don't know. Hold on.
Because you were just basically like saying, you were done at that point. You wanted to go for it.
Well, look, I wasn't really feeling Morbius. Years ago when it first got announced that it was coming out. So I was any excuse I could use to kind of sidestep it. It's in the same vein of Venom. You know how I feel.
Yes, yes. I know you're not a Venom.
That. Huh? Yeah.
Yeah, you're not a Venom fan.
Not really all that much. And so no, Morbius is still at 16.
Okay.
Still at 16, but it's got 70% audience score.
All right. Okay. All right. So that's good. That makes sense. It wasn't bad. It wasn't good, but it was better than Venom. If we're using Venom as the bench,
like Venom? How can
I do?
But you don't think Venom is bad.
I think Venom is purposely bad, and so I'm in on, and I think they're in on the joke, and I'm in on the joke, and so it's great. It's like snakes in a plane. I can enjoy it because it's not something that I'm going in being like, this is expert cinema. Morbius, believe it or not, has the makings of what could have been a very good movie. It even has. There's this one scene in the middle of it. Or not in the middle, maybe close to the end of the first act after he becomes Morbius, where if this was Batman or if this was Spider-Man, let's use Spider-Man as the example because he has kind of a similar, he gains these powers. It's almost a Tobey Maguire like sequence where remember in the original Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire looks in the mirror and all of a sudden he's buff. Michael Morbius, same thing, and he's kind of going through, he's keeping a journal, he's keeping a like a log of, like a video, not a video, like an audio, log of all the transformations that are happening and all the stuff that's happening. Yeah. And I'm sitting there going like, this is actually at that point too. I'm sitting there going, this is really good. Like it was actually really good up to that point, to where they introduced Jared Leto's Morbius character. You understood the character. You understood why he was motivated to do what he was doing. You understood kind of what he was after. And you understood why he had to go to the lengths of working on his own DNA in order to, he
understood his issue, his want, right, of the character.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. Like you do, like the entire time. You understood all this. And so when he becomes what he becomes, there's a moment in that scene where I thought it was going to fly off the rails. It didn't. The guard went up to his scientist partner to where basically it's this woman Martine, who's basically, you could tell she's in love with him. She admires him for everything he's done. He's a genius, and so she really takes to him, and she is helping him. Basically, they have to go to international waters in order to perform this experiment. He meets his best friend at a special hospital because he has a blood disease. His friend has a blood disease, and so he's desperately trying to find a cure for that. He invents something called synthetic blood. He wins a Nobel Prize, but he refuses to accept it because he wasn't trying to create synthetic blood. He was trying to create a cure for himself. So he says, I refuse to accept an award for a mistake I made. So it lends itself. Okay, this guy's determined to do one thing, and that's to save himself and to save his best friend. And so again, really, really good. Then the best friend, I guess, apparently is super rich, and so can fund all of these experiments. He's the quiet benefactor. It's played by Matt Smith from Doctor Who fame. And they have to go into international waters in order to perform this, because he says he's splicing human DNA and bat DNA, and obviously something like this is not something we can do in any way, shape, or form legally. And so they put him, on this boat. There's a bunch of hired mercenaries there on the boat with them. I'm not sure exactly why. See, this is where it starts. You start to kind of understand where the critics' scores might have changed a little bit, because you're like, all right, they're on a boat in international waters. Like, they couldn't have just rented a boat and just, sail it. I don't know. They needed hired thugs for some reason. The thug goes down and meets Martine, and at first you're sitting there going like, oh my God, is this going to be a typical like white male toxicity, toxic masculinity kind of character, which has now become an archetype, which has now become a predictable archetype, I guess. But no, he actually restrains himself. He doesn't try to like force himself, because I'm like, oh my God, he's got a gun. He's going to obviously force himself on Martine Bancroft. But no, he doesn't. But then all of a sudden Morbius kind of changes and he becomes this vampire. From that scene on, the rest of the movie feels a little plastic. And I think the runtime might have had something to do with it. I think they might have had to cut enough of the movie out so that because it's only an hour and 48. I wonder if they cut too much in the editing floor because they were worried they would become like a Zack Snyder film, where it goes on and on and on and in an uninteresting way. But the rest of the film, there's some questionable decisions. There's rushed. A lot of it feels rushed. A lot of it feels hurried. A lot of it feels like it's just moving at such a brisk pace that you don't get the full emotion of it. You don't get the full motivation. Matt Smith, spoiler again, we have the spoilers thing up there, turns out to be the bad guy in this, because he then, Morbius.
It's not really a spoiler. It's what's his name all over again, right? Who was it's not Ned Leeds all over again, or what's Goblin's son? Who's the Hobgoblin?
Oh, Green Goblin.
Yeah,
it's Harry Osborn.
Harry Osborn. Yeah, it's Harry Osborn all over again.
There's definitely elements of that. There's no question about it. There is. But no,
Green Goblin's his father. Harry Osborn's the Hobgoblin.
No, Ned Leeds is the Hobgoblin. Harry Osborn becomes just the Green Goblin.
In the Spider-Man movies, he became the Hobgoblin.
I don't know if he did.
In the end, what's his name?
Spider-Man 3?
Yeah. That's he
adopted. They call him the Hobgoblin, or is he just the Green Goblin, the second Green Goblin? Well, either way,
all the ancillary stuff had always said it was like the Hobgoblin that they had made him into the Hobgoblin. It doesn't matter. But I mean, it's the same thing. Is that we're friends, and you're doing this for. And then actually, in the Amazing Spider-Man, the Harry Osborn, played by Dane Hedon or whatever.
Oh right, Dane DeHaan.
DeHaan, yeah. It's almost the same story, because he's sick, and he wants Spider-Man's blood,
Right.
So he's pretending to be his friend. So you even have
Well,
the
no, this is the
invalid.
thing. See, this is where Morbius kind of again kind of almost bullet points out the rest of the movie for us. And you don't feel it. You don't feel like the actual range of emotions. He is his legitimate friend, and they are best friends. And he's
Well, Dane DeHaan was his friend, but then he just turned malignant.
no, but that's
And
yeah. See that? Well, that's the thing. So Matt Smith never turns malignant toward Morbius, just all the people around him. And also, he was a little. At first, he gets upset because Morbius is like, "No, I can't give this to you." He goes, "No, but you got cured." He's like, "No, this is not a cure; it's a curse." And so Matt Smith, his character, never like. It's weird. But again, he kind of. It's like one of those like show me, don't tell me kind of things. He always just keeps telling him that it's just me and you, bro, and we're gonna be bros and blah blah blah. But the whole time he's not acting that way. And he starts killing people and.
You're only saying it's different because of how it turns out, but it's
Yes.
the same premise.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like
yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. It just there's moments where you're just kind of you're fast forwarding through things to the point where the rest of the movie is plastic. So again, I don't think it's a great movie. I think it had all the makings of what could have been a great movie or a very good superhero movie. It's not a bad film though. And Jared Leto does a nice job. He's actually very, very likable in this. I think Jared Leto can be an actor that you either love or don't love. You know what I mean? Like a very.
I didn't mind his Joker. I liked his Joker.
I liked his Joker, but I think a lot of people didn't. And I think a lot of people, like, again, Jared Leto as an actor sometimes can be, it's either make or break with a lot of folks. You either love him or you hate him kind of deal. I thought he was great in this. I thought he was very promising as the character. A lot of promising moments in it. Just, it felt very rushed. It felt very much like we didn't feel it. And then Matt Smith, by the end, you're just very confused about why he's doing everything he's doing. In some ways you're not, because he lived his life as someone who was impaired. He was, both of them were on crutches their whole life. They couldn't be normal kids. So you could understand why he has disdain for the rest of the world. But then he kills a few people and you're like, why is he doing that now? Like he kills specific people and you're like, or he goes after specific people and you're like, I'm not quite sure what's going on. And he fights Morbius a lot. But meanwhile, he's always like, how does he know he's not going to kill Morbius when he fights him? You know what I mean? Like it's weird.
Doesn't sound like a good movie to me.
No, I'm saying it first half, excellent, or the first act was excellent. I thought an excellent setup. And then it just kind of went downhill. A lot of questionable decisions, very rushed. And that's that's my take.
All right.
Worth seeing in the theater?
No.
I think so.
No. No. That doesn't sound like it at all.
Not worth the 16% score, though. The 70% audience score, I think that makes sense to me. I think you would enjoy
the 16% score and then the tepid box office probably would do it.
Did the tepid? No, I thought it did well.
Did okay.
Let's see. I know it did well on Thursday night. It did a very good job. And so debut. All right, yeah. So it eyes a $40 million opening, and it opened at 5.7, but it had $39 million opening. So I mean, it's less than half the box office of Venom. So I guess in that sense, it's a failure. If Venom is the benchmark for it, then I guess it is.
This is what I'm saying. This is the same thing I said in the last segment of like when you hedge it all together and you compare the openings. Like, okay, so then we shouldn't watch any more Disney Plus after Loki. Because Loki did the best, so everything else is crap apparently.
Right.
So yeah, like look, if it did okay, it did okay.
Yeah.
Even Solo did okay. It made money, but in comparison to into every other movie in the genre, and that's how they measure these things these days. I don't know why.
So, last bit of spoiler for you, if you'd like
I
me
don't want
to.
any spoilers.
Oh, it's too late now, I guess. If you'd like me to indulge a little further, there's an end credit scene that again didn't make any sense, but actually helped make.
This is what I'm saying, dude. You're advocating for the movie, and you said this doesn't make any sense at least four times.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Go ahead.
There's a scene at the end. It's an end credit scene that doesn't make sense in the context of the multiverse. because all of a sudden Michael Keaton's character just from Spider-Man Homecoming appears in the multiverse, in the Venom verse. We'll call it the Venom verse, right?
Okay. Hello, Batman.
Right. And I guess it explains how when Venom in Spider-Man No Way Home kind of shows up, but then kind of moves, kind of leaves the multiverse, but there's a piece of Venom behind. I guess in a way it explains it, because they basically say like, oh man, Adrian Toomes just showed up out of nowhere in a cell and he'll be released and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, all right, I don't know what's going on with this end credit scene. Again, very rushed. Sony's, it's like between Sony and DC doing the shared universe thing, they just don't know how to do it on their own,
Yeah.
And at the end, he meets up with Morbius somehow, and he's like, I think the two of us should team up, because that'll make Sony a lot of money at the box office. He doesn't actually say that, but that's essentially what he says.
So don't worry about it. It would not. If we go by Venom, it would not make them a lot of money at the.
No, Venom makes them a ton of money.
If we go by Morbius and
Venom, correct.
Come on, even Venom 2, that was not as exciting.
Venom did cash at the box office though, pre and post pandemic. So Venom is definitely, it's definitely there. It's definitely there. So
fine.
All right. What did you guys think? Did you see Morbius? Are you going to go see Morbius? I wonder how it's going to do on streaming. I think it's going to do excellent on streaming. I think it's going to be one of those movies that people wait for. Maybe it'll have a second life that way. We'll talk about all of that live in Wizard World Philly. Oh, sorry, I did. Oh, Fan Expo Philly. I did it.
Man,
can't help it. First year out. But it's gonna be awesome. We're gonna do some surprise guests. We're gonna have some live. We're gonna just drag people on stage with us. We're gonna be at center stage as soon as you walk in. 12 o'clock. Wizard World. Did it again. Fan Expo Philly.
We got invited there. And you're
HQ.com. Look up the Philadelphia show. We're on the program. We're pretty excited. Well, I'm excited. Hassan is deathly afraid of this, but it's good.
Yeah, sure. Put me out on blast. That's great.
I'm just joking. You're gonna love it. You've performed. We used to perform in bands together. You were out there on stage.
Yeah.
You're a pro at this now.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we'll talk about on stage this weekend. We'll talk about our time in AGO, which performs all the music on this show. Pretty exciting. Look at that.
Looking forward to it.
We will see you guys over the weekend, and we will see you guys next week. Rogue Wave. Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern for a brand new episode of the Rogue Wave podcast.